December 2009 marked a turning point in the digital age. At Google's Mountain View headquarters in California, a routine scan by one of their engineers revealed something unexpected: unusual data traffic. At first, it seemed like a fluke, but what they found next was chilling. Google had been under cyber attack for months. Sensitive source code had been exfiltrated, and Gmail accounts, including those belonging to Chinese human rights activists, may have been compromised. This was the beginning of what would become known as Operation Aurora, a sophisticated cyber attack that not only breached Google systems but targeted over 30 other major companies. And the shocking part, the hackers didn't get in by exploiting a flaw in Google's infrastructure. Instead, they came through a backdoor, one hidden in Microsoft's Internet Explorer, a browser millions used, including Google's own employees. To understand how significant this attack was, let's go back to 2009. Google was at the peak of its power, dominating the internet with its search engine, Gmail, Maps, YouTube, and Android. Trust in Google was enormous. The company was also making inroads in China, despite tensions around censorship and surveillance. For many Chinese citizens, especially dissidents and activists, Gmail was a vital channel for private communication, outside the reach of state surveillance. But that trust was about to be shattered. The attackers used a tactic known as spear-phishing. A few Google employees received emails that looked completely legitimate, maybe a link to a shared document or an internal resource. But once clicked, the link opened a site designed to exploit a previously unknown vulnerability in Internet Explorer 6. This zero-day flaw, later catalogued as CVE 2010-0249, allowed malicious code to be executed remotely. Once inside, malware installed itself silently, opening a secure connection to servers traced to China. From there, the hackers began siphoning off data, source code repositories, internal communications, and private Gmail account information. The attack was stealthy, precise, and incredibly effective. Google's investigation revealed something even more disturbing. The hackers weren't just after intellectual property. They were targeting Gmail accounts used by Chinese human rights activists. These weren't random attacks. This was espionage. According to reports from McAfee, Reuters, and the New York Times, the technical evidence pointed clearly to state-sponsored hackers, likely operating with the backing or knowledge of the Chinese government. Naturally, the Chinese government denied involvement, calling the allegations groundless. But the clues were undeniable. The servers used in the attack were located in Beijing. The tactics matched known Chinese Advanced Persistent Threat (APT) groups. The targets, activists, journalists, and technology firms, fit squarely within the scope of China's strategic interests. But the biggest shock came when researchers realized this wasn't just about Google. McAfee's report in early 2010 identified at least 34 companies that had been targeted. Adobe, Yahoo, Morgan Stanley, Juniper Networks, and several major defense contractors were all victims. Most had stayed quiet, fearing reputational damage or worse. Some smaller companies lost critical intellectual property. Others never recovered. It wasn't just corporate espionage, it was a coordinated campaign to undermine Western innovation and boost China's technological and strategic edge. And at the center of it all was a vulnerability in a browser that millions trusted: Microsoft's Internet Explorer. The fallout at Google was massive. Internally, the breach caused panic. The source code of core applications had been accessed. Gmail accounts of sensitive users had been breached. Engineers felt responsible. After all, it was their routine emails, opened in a flawed browser, that opened the door. Google responded swiftly. They worked with Microsoft to patch Internet Explorer and launched a sweeping internal security overhaul. HTTPS became the default for Gmail. Two-factor authentication was introduced. Employee training was intensified. Staff were drilled in security protocols, learning to recognize phishing attempts and suspicious behavior. For many, the stress was immense. Some felt personally responsible for the breach. But the company's leadership stood firm. The real failure was trusting a third-party tool with known vulnerabilities. And then came the boldest move of all. On January 12, 2010, Google went public. In a blog post titled "A New Approach to China," the company announced that they would no longer comply with Chinese censorship laws. By March, they began redirecting users from google.cn to uncensored search results hosted in Hong Kong. It was a dramatic shift, one that cost Google heavily in the Chinese market. But it was also a moral stand, a refusal to accept surveillance, censorship, and cyber intrusion as the new normal. Google's decision inspired other companies to re-evaluate their security and international policies. It also deepened the tech rift between the United States and China, a rift that has only widened over the last 15 years. Today, in 2025, the legacy of Operation Aurora still shapes how companies think about cybersecurity. It was one of the first major breaches to demonstrate that even tech giants are vulnerable, especially when the attack comes through third-party tools and not their own systems. Since Aurora, we've seen more advanced and widespread attacks. The SolarWinds breach, the Movite vulnerability, the Colonial Pipeline ransomware, and countless data leaks from both governments and private firms. We've also seen staggering financial thefts, like Bybit's 2024 crypto heist, which cost over $1.5 billion. The pattern is clear. Threat actors, especially those backed by nation-states, are constantly evolving. And the line between cybercrime and cyber war is growing blurrier. Operation Aurora was a wake-up call. It forced companies to encrypt more, authenticate better, and train harder. But it also showed that no system is impenetrable. That a single click in the wrong browser, on the wrong day, can lead to catastrophic consequences. So what's the big takeaway here? First, never assume you're too big to be breached. Second, security isn't just about firewalls and software, it's about people. Most breaches still start with a human mistake, clicking a link, trusting an email, reusing a password. Finally, don't underestimate the geopolitical stakes. Cyber attacks aren't just about money, they're about influence, control, and sometimes even silencing dissent. Operation Aurora didn't just shake Google, it changed the rules of the game. It reminded us that in the digital world, every click counts, and that the battle for control isn't only being fought with missiles or diplomacy, but with malware, phishing, and code. So next time you get an unexpected email, pause, think, and maybe double-check which browser you're using. Because sometimes, the biggest hacks start with the smallest clicks.